of Iranian American Communities, OIAC. It is a great pleasure to inaugurate our virtual nationwide conference of the Iranian American Communities, really our convention, as we gather here to call for regime change in Iran by the Iranian people. Today marks the second anniversary of maximum pressure campaign launched by the United States, and the Iranian people welcome this move because it weakens the IRGC and the regime. People of Iran are indeed the longest suffering victims of the mullah's regime. We gather today to urge the administration to keep up with the pressure and trigger the snapback of the UN Security Council resolution on Iran. Just yesterday, the United States sanctions Iran's Minister of Interior and several others under the human rights related authorities. The people of Iran welcome this news and urge the US to continue such efforts because mullahs are responsible for executions, torture, imprisonments, the 1988 massacre as noted by Amnesty International, wars and terrorism. Corruption, mafia-style governance, terrorism and chaos is what explains the history of this regime over the past 40 years. Yet, there is a vibrant resistance movement for change and a free Iran. The proud people of Iran are ready to take back the country and change this regime. Our speakers today will discuss the global threat of the regime, domestic repression, and the prospect of change. They will also discuss the US policy, particularly the need to stand on the side of the people of Iran and specific steps to enact snapback mechanisms at the UN Security Council to impose all UN Security Council sanctions on the regime in Iran. On behalf of OIAC, our sponsoring organization, and all of our local communities across 40 states, I welcome all of you. Whether we are in person or virtual, we are as eager as ever and proud to continue our effort for a free Iran, and that day is very soon. We have a very impressive lineup of our speakers, including representatives and leaders of Iranian American communities. A very special welcome to our distinguished guests, Ms. Sona Samsami from the National Council of Resistance of Iran, Washington, D.C. office, Governor Tom Ridge, America's first Secretary of Homeland Security and former governor of Pennsylvania, Senator Robert Torricelli, former US Senate from New Jersey, and Ambassador Kenneth Blackwell, former US Ambassador to the United Nations Commission on Human Rights, who will be joining us shortly. We also have Bishop Dr. Robert Stearns and also Reverend Dr. Marcus Miranda. We're very, very pleased to welcome all of you. I also want to welcome all of the media outlets and the journalists who have joined us for our event today. This event is being broadcasted and live streamed into Iran and Europe. And I also want to especially thank one of the outlets who's streaming this program right now that has about 250,000 viewers. We welcome each and every one of you. Our event and social media hashtag is #FreeIran. OIAC 2020 virtual conference. With that, let's start with our first speaker from the Iranian American community. We will start with Iranian American community of Maryland. Please go ahead.
Hello. My name is Aref Alvandi. It is an honor to be with you all today. On behalf of the Iranian American community of Maryland, I welcome you to this event. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and supporters of the free Iran, our message is very clear. We stand with the millions of Iranians protesting against the regime of mullahs as they shout, "Down with Khamenei, down with Rouhani." Over the last several months, we have witnessed two major nationwide uprisings. People from all walks of life, blue collar, white collar, participate in these protests. It is the women, the students, the youth, the labor movement, the teachers union, the workers, the unemployed and underemployed that are partaking in these protests and uprising. The days of this regime are numbered, and nobody knows that better and understands that better than this regime of the mullahs. It is for this very reason we call upon our policymakers and government officials to continue to stand with the people of Iran and keep the maximum pressure on this regime. The people of Iran are paying the ultimate price for their freedom with their lives. And their bravery fighting this brutal regime is nothing short of heroism. More than 1,500 people have been massacred during the 2019 November uprising, and thousands more arrested who face torture every day. We cannot and should not allow a repressive regime of Iran to gain access to military armament in the international market. And we urge the UN Secretary Council members to join the United States in blocking arms sales to Mullah's regime. Let me emphasize, the best option is for the US to activate the snapback mechanism so that the Ayatollahs would get no relief from the international community to buy arms, develop nuclear weapons, and empower their proxies in the region and massacre people. We know what it takes to bring democracy in Iran. And we ask for the world to recognize the rights of the Iranian people to end this terrorist regime of mullahs. And I thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Afsaneh Maksudi. I join you as a member of Iranian American community of Michigan. As a physician who has seen firsthand what COVID-19 has done to many communities, today I want to discuss how Iran is uniquely different than other countries. In Iran, doctors and nurses face arrest and death if they expose the true infection rate and deaths. The world community and policymakers must understand how the regime deception and disinformation campaigns during this pandemic cannot be analyzed in a vacuum. Mullah's domestic repression, terrorism, and nuclear expansion has a new tool, and that is COVID-19. Zarif is using it to lobby and get sympathy for his dying regime. Rouhani is using it to distract the public on his utter failure. Khamenei is using it as a strategy to give his regime a lifeline. Revolutionary guards are using it for repression. Yet, the people of Iran continue to denounce all of them. Any sanctions relief for the regime under the cover of helping the victims of the pandemic is a lie by regime and its lobbyists. Medical assistance or medicine should go directly to the people of Iran and not to the regime. The rejection of the regime must be recognized with the effort of resistance units, health workers risking lives to inform the global community about COVID-19. People are coming together locally and nationally to help each other. This is the first of true Iran, the face of resistance, and let us celebrate them and declare our solidarity with the people of Iran. Thank you, and keep healthy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nader Ehsani. I'm a dentist practicing in Kentucky. It is my pleasure to speak with you on behalf of the Iranian American community in Kentucky. We are witnessing a history in making in Iran, where rebellion in the street is now happening in prisons. Political prisoners who, despite the torture, threat of execution, and constant harassment of their families, have joined the protest. In the last few months, we have seen rejection of the regime is the wave of prison rebellions and escape in more than 10 cities. The public is rushing to aid those who have escaped and given them refuge. The wave of rebellions have continued. As last week, the city of Urumiyeh witnessed another prison rebellion. This is an indication of regime's weakness, where prisoners are taking matters in their own hands. The sign of a crumbling regime is now becoming more evident. We all are so moved by the message of resistance that is coming from the political prisoners as they urge all of us to be their voice to ensure our journey to a free Iran is not distracted by the regime's propaganda and plots. We stand with them and salute their bravery. Join us in this call for solidarity and press for the release of all political prisoners. Thank you very much. Stay healthy and be safe.
Hello everyone, my name is Hasti Hassami. I'm a medical dosimetrist at the University of Texas. My warmest greetings to you all who took time from your busy day to attend this meeting. I'm very happy to join you today on behalf of the Iranian American community of Texas. My message today is for student movement, brave students who carried legacy of student protest and played a historic role during and after 1979 revolution. Iranian students have been on front line of anti-Shah protests and not against the mullahs. The founders of Iran's main opposition group, Mujahedin Khalq, emerged from vibrant culture of student movement, and the organization continues to carry the torch today. 3 major universities with highest academic credentials, namely Sharif, Tehran, and Amir Kabir universities, have been in front of student movements from the time of the Shah until today. No wonder elite students Ali Younesi and Amir Hussein Moradi were arrested from Sharif University of Technology, were arrested last month, were accused of having ties with the main Iranian opposition group, MEK. There is an enduring and impactful legacy of student movement through multiple generations of Iranian history. There is the movements, as we could see in the recent uprisings that happened January of this year. Students were shouting, "Down with the tyrants, be it the Shah or the supreme leader, neither the crown nor the turban, and the mullahs are goners." We can clearly see the message that learned from the previous dictatorship has carried to today's movement. As I join you here today to call for the release of these 2 bright students, among with 18 others who have been arrested with the similar charges, I'm honored to stand with them and carry their message here in the United States, where we fight for free Iran. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the speakers as well as everyone who has come out to this event in these difficult times. I would like to play a song called Gula Goldun to convey a sense of hope and support to the student activists in Iran, many of which have been arrested recently.
what a beautiful piece by Sina Saeidian from UC Berkeley, member of OYAC Millennial Chapter. Thank you so much, Sina. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I would like to get a view of our participant because as you know, we are connected from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. I want to say hello to all of our participants. You're on the camera now. Wave or hold your hands up in victory. We are so happy to have all of you with us. I'm seeing folks from California, from Oregon, from Washington State, Arizona, and I also see Texas, Kansas, Colorado. It's just far too many for me to list here. I see Kansas here, I see Missouri. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today. Let me also turn to our East Coast. Let's go to East Coast and look at our friends from the East Coast who have joined us. From Virginia, do we have the East Coast view? Excellent. I see folks from Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., New York, Pennsylvania. Wave, you're on camera, everybody. I see Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, North Carolina. My colleagues are telling me South Carolina is online. It's a pleasure to have all of you with us today. We're so thankful to be able to do this virtual conference. And as we work together for a free Iran, thank you so much. This is wonderful. At this point, I would like to return back to our speakers, and we will turn to our speakers in California.
Hello, my name is Mohammed Omitwar. My greeting to all of you. I'm here to represent the Iranian American community in Southern California. Over the years, we have witnessed how the regime has spread its terrorism and chaos in the whole region through its proxy forces and founding of terrorist groups like the Hezbollah and the others. The regime proceeds to control in the region its politics and hegemony in the whole Middle East. Thankfully, given the maximum pressure, sanctions, and elimination of the terror master like Qasem Soleimani, Iran's supreme leader is no longer be able to be as effective in Iraq, Syria, and the entire region. People of the Iraq, people of the Syria have paid a very heavy price for destructive policies of the regime. This is the way we see such as a strong solidarity being formed among these nations with the Iranian people, and they called for the end of the regime. A peaceful Middle East is only possible when there is a free Iran. I repeat, the peaceful Middle East is only possible when the Iran is free. I speak on behalf of all communities across the United States that we fully support the US's effort to prevent the lifting of arms embargo in October. Thank you very much. God bless and stay safe.
Hello to you and all of our viewers. I hope you are healthy and safe wherever you are. My name is Saeed Sajjadi and I'm a physician. On behalf of Iranian American community in Kansas, it's an honor to speak to you today about US policy on Iran. Now, let's review some facts. Mullah's regime is a terrorist medieval theocracy. It has committed enormous crimes against humanity. It's suffering from the crisis of legitimacy, and therefore it's not able to reform. Hypothetically, if regime were to reform, it would no longer be able to keep its apparatus of repression together and would fall apart with the first wave of people's uprising. Regime's insistence to continue with repression, terrorism, and expansionism is exactly due to its weakness rather than strength. As a direct result of regime's inherent weakness, JCPOA failed to foster any change in regime's behavior. That's why US had to exit JCPOA to confront the threats of Mullah's regime head on. Indeed, US departure from JCPOA, resulting in the policy of maximum pressure, has been the most realistic US policy toward Mullah's regime in the past 4 decades. This policy allows people of Iran to fight the regime on a level playing field to free Iran. Snapback is the logical progression of policy of maximum pressure in order to contain number one state sponsor of terrorism. This policy allows people of Iran to fight the regime on a level playing field. Snapback is the logical progression of the policy of maximum pressure. US as an original JCPOA participant, as defined by United Nations Security Council Resolution 2231, is legally able to trigger snapback mechanism and renew sanctions from the previous resolutions. US indeed needs to lead and snap back. Others need to follow or get out of the way. Thank you all. See you soon in a free Iran.
Hello, everyone. My name is Batul Zamani, and I'm a real estate broker in Atlanta, Georgia. I speak to you on behalf of Iranian American community of Georgia. You have heard from all other speakers about the Free Iran. The movement for the Free Iran is no different than what we have learned from other liberal democracies around the world. Let me share with you what a Free Iran will look like based on the 10-point plan of Mrs. Maryam Rajavi. She symbolized everything our people have always wanted. Her 10-point plan is visionary, forward-looking, progressive, and in line with the spirit of 100 years of Iranian struggles for freedom and justice. It addressed issues such as separation of church and state, free and fair elections, multi-party system, end of death penalty, gender equality, rule of law, commitment to Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and all other UN treaties. Free market economy, peaceful coexistence, regional cooperation, and non-nuclear Iran. These are all pillars of the Free Iran, and we call upon all US leaders and policymakers to stand with us for Free Iran. Thank you, and God bless, and stay safe.
Hello, my name is Farideh Sediqi. I am a technologist, and I would like to send my greetings to every one of you. I am proud to represent the voice of Iranian American community in Northern California. As you have heard throughout the event today, Iranian movement for change is being carried by a network of resistance units. These units have expanded significantly over the last few years, where you see coordinated acts of protests, slogans, and activities like posting the banners and photos of the Iranian resistance leaders Maryam Rajavi and Masoud Rajavi. It's through their efforts that we can have a clear picture of the alternative to the regime in power. Resistance units represent the depth of the Iranians calling for change. A call that's authentic, homegrown, has a history of resistance, and is willing to pay the price for a free Iran. It's this call that clarifies who the real alternative to this regime is. All those who pose themselves as alternatives, but actually want to take us back to dictatorship of the past, are rejected by the people of Iran. The only alternative that stands out and resonates with the call for change in Iran is the alternative that has exceptional organizational capability, decades of resistance on its record, has sacrificed thousands of its members to fight with this regime. It's hurting the regime on a daily basis, is the #1 concern of the regime, has the ability to organize protests in Iran, has exposed nuclear and missile program and terror network of the regime, is the #1 target of repression and terrorism of Iranian regime, has a well-defined platform for the future of Iran, and has a capable leader that's relying only on the people of Iran to free Iran. And that's none other than the National Council of Resistance of Iran and its pivotal member organization, the MEK. With that, I want to thank you and stay safe.
The spread of coronavirus in Iran, who is to be blamed, the regime or the US sanctions? Iran's regime is mercilessly playing with the Iranian people's lives with its inaction, cover-ups, and politicizing the issue to push for lifting the sanctions. All the resources of the country are in the hands of the Supreme Leader and the IRGC and are not used for fighting COVID-19. Instead, the regime and its apologists push the propaganda that US sanctions are hindering the fight against the pandemic. Ali Khamenei suggested that the virus was a US biological weapon. The following day, the regime's chief propagandist, Foreign Minister Zarif, tweeted that US sanctions were illegal and impeding the global fight against the coronavirus. Some questions if the regime or the sanctions are hindering the fight against the pandemic. Lying for 3 weeks after the spread of coronavirus in Iran for holding the sham parliamentary elections was because of the sanctions. Refusing to quarantine the epicenter, Qom, was due to the sanctions. The IRGC airline Mohair continued its flights to China. Was it because of the sanctions? If the regime lacks money for the people, why they provided $200 million for the IRGC Quds Force in January? Why in July 2019, $1 billion for medical supplies disappeared and another $170 million allocated for medical goods were instead spent on tobacco? While the Supreme Leader runs a hedge fund worth tens of billions of dollars, why doesn't he use it for healthcare system? If Iran is suffering from sanctions, why the regime refused US humanitarian assistance? Why it prevented Doctors Without Borders from constructing a hospital in Iran? The answer to all these questions, simple. The regime is callously using the citizens' suffering to achieve its political goal. Internationally supervised foreign medical aid and assistance to Iran undercuts the regime's argument that sanctions are the main obstacle to fighting COVID-19.
Ladies and gentlemen, the video pretty much captured what the Iranian regime has done, nothing but crimes against the people of Iran. At this point, I would like to invite you to listen to a journey of a family, 3 generations, members of Iranian American community of Virginia who are here today with us. I'd like to welcome Joanne McIntosh, Hanane Amonpour, and Aliyah Amonpour Trapp.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joanne McIntosh, and I was asked to speak today because although I'm an American, I was living in Iran during the 1979 revolution, and I witnessed firsthand how the people of Iran rose up against the Shah, demanding freedom. But Khomeini hijacked their revolution, their genuine call for democracy. My daughter Zahra was born just a few days after the American embassy was seized, and I witnessed the reign of terror launched by the mullahs against pro-democracy and progressive organizations. I became acquainted with the MEK in those early years, and 4 decades later, the resilience and integrity of the MEK resistance still gives me hope for the future of Iran. When the mullahs' crackdown became vicious in 1981, I escaped Iran with my 2 little girls through the mountains into Turkey and back to the US. My youngest daughter, Hanane, was born here in the States. She is here today, along with her daughter, Aliyah, the 3rd generation of our family, advocating a free and democratic Iran. Hannah?
Hello, everyone. I am so honored to be here today and to have an opportunity to speak with you all and share my story. My father was born in Iran and raised and educated in America, but he met my mother. He was a loving and caring man, and I think most people remember him for his kindness and strong sense of faith. And it was these very same characteristics that attracted him to the Iranian resistance movement. He was researching a book on the memoirs of a political prisoner whom he was to meet along the Iranian frontier when he disappeared in 1988. At first, we'd hoped he'd been captured alive, but after news came out that Khomeini had ordered the massacre of 30,000 political prisoners, we knew he could not have survived. I was 5 when my father died. I honor his memory and his sacrifice for freedom and democracy in Iran. I would like to one day visit the beautiful country of my father, a nation with great culture, magnificent people, and a significant role to play in making the world a safer place. I hope my daughter Aliyah will join me on that day.
Hello and thank you. This is my first time I'm speaking before all of you. I've never met my grandfather, but he has always been a part of who I am, and his life and death have shaped how I see the world. I am inspired by the youth in Iran, who are risking their lives to carry on the message of the resistance and my grandfather. It is hard for me to grasp how the regime massacred at least 50 teenagers during the November 2019 uprising, some of them as young as 14 years old. This movement is my heritage, and that's why I stand with the people of Iran and their call for democracy. I want to see a free Iran. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be a part of this historic online summit by Iranian Americans. My name is Dr. Solmaz Abu Ali, and I'm an author, a professor, and a world champion in traditional karate. My message today is this: I believe that maximum pressure on the Iranian regime is necessary in order to prevent it from obtaining more arms and resources, which are used to fund its proxies and to kill my fellow Iranians. Now, lately, we've been hearing a lot about how sanctions are to blame for as Iran deals with the coronavirus pandemic. But the truth is, for the most part, this is based on a smokescreen analysis that leaves out what Iranians have been saying all along, voicing chants like, our enemy is here, it's a lie, don't lie, it's the US, and Khamenei is a murderer. In my research and experience, I've yet to come across a single Iranian who blames the maximum pressure policy enforced by the US on Iran for the troubles and sufferings that they've experienced at home. So the fact is and remains that this regime in Iran is anti-Iran, anti-prosperity, anti-human rights, anti-peace, anti-stability. To believe anything else is simply delusional and irresponsible. Now, in covering Iran, I would advise 2 points for the mainstream media. First, remember that for years, Iran has tried to place blame for its own crimes on the people of Iran. And second, look to the messages coming directly from Iran, the message of change, the message of resistance, the message of a free Iran, which all indicators show that it's ripe to become a reality soon. These messages are coming from the brave women's movement, the young girls and women who pour into the streets in every protest and rally as they shout down with the dictators. Let me also take a moment here to voice my support for my native land, for the students, for the women, for the resistance units, for the popular councils. We are with you and we commit to this path of a free Iran. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abu Ali. I also want to talk a little bit about the video we just saw and the speakers who shared with us their personal experience of 3 generations. You know, there is many of these folks among the Iranian community. At this point, I am told by my colleagues that we have more than 1,000 participants joining us on this conference. I want to ask one more time to give us a view from the West all the way to the East Coast. Give us a view of our Iranian American community members from the West Coast. You are on camera. Thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate all your support and continued effort for the free Iran. Let's move to the East Coast if we can. I see Connecticut on the call. Hello, Connecticut. I see Massachusetts. Hello, Massachusetts, Vermont. This is so wonderful, and I'm so very pleased to welcome each and every one of you. So at this point, I'm going to give it one more minute. All right, at this point, I would like to welcome Ms. Sona Samsami, the U.S. representative of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, who has joined us today. We're very pleased to have you with us, Ms. Samsami, and thank you for accepting our invitation. We really would like to hear from you and the NCRI's analysis on the situation in Iran and the crisis that has engulfed this regime. Thank you so much. I think we're having difficulty with Ms. Samsami's connection. Ms. Samsami, I'm sorry, if you can't hear me, we need to make sure you're unmuted. Ms. Samsami, I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to ask you to unmute yourself, please. There we go. We have you now.
Should I start again, or?
Yes, please, if you could start from the top. My apologies for the technical difficulties. Please go ahead.
Okay. So sorry. I was thanking Dr. Ramesh for introducing me. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the Iranian communities across the United States for inviting me to speak at this great virtual conference today. I'm speaking today while 40 years of Mullah's rule has dismantled the country's medical, health, and welfare foundation to a large extent, leaving our country and society unable to defend against pandemics. Despite Iran being so rich and resourceful, with all
Ladies and gentlemen, just bear with us. We seem to have some connection issues with Ms. Samsami's connection. Just bear with us a few minutes as we correct the
Getting
situation.
sanctions lifted. At the same time, the mullahs are refraining from deploying the government resources, particularly their financial and technological resources, consolidated in the IRGC's holdings and companies, as well as by Khamenei's headquarters, worth hundreds of billions of dollars. The religious dictatorship ruling Iran, terrified of popular uprisings, continues to arrest and summon students, youth, former political prisoners, sympathizers of the MEK and their families, and sentences political prisoners to lengthy prison terms. It has also hanged prisoners to create an atmosphere of fear. At the same time, the regime is stepping up its rogue behavior in the region with the goal of deviation attention from its isolation inside Iran and its utter incompetence and unwillingness to help the Iranian people. The regime also hopes that using intimidation and terror, the international community will back down the regime so can survive through 2020. Tehran is also waging an extensive psychological war against the main organized opposition of Iran, the MEK, and the larger coalition of National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI. While the resistance escalates against the Iranian regime, the mullahs spend huge amounts of money to demonize the resistance. Tehran has funded its agents, proxies, and its various lobbies to wage hysteric attacks against NCRI and MEK and the leadership of the resistance. The focus is on Ashraf III in Albania. The Iranian regime, which was unable to destroy the MEK through all these years of massacre, torture, and assassination, has now resorted to demonization campaign. The success of Iranian resistance has only made the Iranian regime more hysteric. But make no mistake, experience shows that these demonization campaigns by the Iranian regime are preludes to terror operations. To reach its objective, the mullahs have resorted to most dirty tactics, such as exploiting the families of Ashraf III residents, arrest and intimidation of the family members inside the country in order to break the will of MEK members, all to no avail. The demonization campaign is also meant to create confusion, deter the international community from standing on the side of the organized resistance for change, and at the end of the day, go back to the 40-year-old policy of appeasement of Iranian regime that always failed. Ironically, when the Shah was in power, the mullahs collaborated with him and his infamous secret police Savak. Now that the mullahs are in power, the remnants of the Shah regime have sided with the mullahs' notorious IRGC, and publicly they say they intend to recruit the regime's IRGC and paramilitary Basiji members. For their part, the mullahs go to great lengths to propagate monarchy social media and fantasy of the Shah's remnant aspiring to return Iran to the past. They do this to defy the prospect of a free and democratic future. Fortunately, none of the regime's ploys have worked, nor will they ever work. During the November 2019 uprising, the hollow invincibility of Revolutionary Guards crumbled. People believed in their own power. The strategy that relied on resistance units and rebellious cities was vindicated. Everyone saw the resistance units offer a breakthrough and are a beacon for uprising and freedom. Well, what should the international community do in these circumstances? all, the Iranian regime must be pressured to put hundreds of billions of dollars, which are now at the disposal of Khamenei and RGC, to put to the service of the suffering people of Iran. Secondly, the international pressure on the Iranian regime must step up, as any relief provided to the regime will only empower the IRGC and further suppress the population inside Iran and escalate regime's regional destruction. Third, the United States should use its leverage at the United Nations Security Council to facilitate the snapback of all prior UN Security Council sanctions as a result of Iranian regime's non-compliance with its own commitments. After all, no relief either now or a few years down the road should be provided to the Iranian regime. Let me conclude by saying that there is a single solution for the issue and the problem of coronavirus, for poverty Iran, for oppression, for stopping terrorism of Iranian regime, and the Tehran's global threat. That solution is the overthrowing of Mullah's religious dictatorship in its entirety by the people of Iran. As Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, the President-elect of National Council of Resistance of Iran, envisioned in her 10-point plan for the future of Iran, we want a free, democratic, non-nuclear republic based on separation of mosque and state, gender equality, free market economy. The international community should stand on the side of the Iranian people and their resistance. The world will be a safer place with a free Iran. And I would like to thank you everyone and best wishes for everyone at these circumstances. And I return it to Dr. Ramesh to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Samsami. Really appreciate your insightful remark. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'm very, very honored to introduce our next speaker, Senator Robert Torricelli, former Senator of New Jersey. Senator Torricelli served in US Congress first in the House and then in the Senate. And over the years, he has been on the forefront and a staunch advocate of a free Iran. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, Senator, and we would really like to get your thoughts on a bipartisan view on US policy on Iran, the issue of snapback, and of course, as Ms. Samsami talked about the folks in Ashraf 3 in Albania. I'm gonna turn it over to you. Thank you, Senator, for being with us again.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. To every member of the Iranian American community around the country, and if I could, special words to those brave souls in Ashraf. Most of us carry on this fight with our best wishes, our contributions, and our time. They carry it on 24 hours a day. To all of you in Ashraf, we're thinking of you, and we're so grateful for your efforts. I'm speaking to you from northern Maine on the very edge of the American grid. So if at any point I lose you, my apologies, but I didn't want to miss this occasion. It was while all of us have been dealing with the pandemic and consumed by our own lives, an enormous amount has been happening, obviously, in Iran and around the world. It is almost like a gathering storm. The factors that have conspired to put pressure on this regime and potentially bring it to an almost immediate end. What began with the misrepresentations, the lies about the shooting of the Ukrainian airliner when the regime was caught in its duplicity, continued with the virus, where to this day the regime has not only lied about the impact of the virus, but refused to use resources that are going to the IRGC, the mullahs themselves, to their overseas terrorist campaigns, that should be going to the health of the Iranian people. Those events, combined with a collapse of oil prices and the Iranian oil industry, some due to the international market, some due to a failure to invest in the in Iranian production, and the ostracism of the Iranian regime has denied the regime of vital resources. They're holding on by having whatever resources they've got go to the IRGC, but they're unable to do basic life supports of the quality of life of the Iranian people or of medical care in order to feed their own security forces. Put all these factors together, they're draining their foreign currency. There's pressure on prices. They've lost control of the streets on occasion. Resistance groups of the MEK have grown all over the country, a few dozen at a time, and now hundreds, as people have been willing to put their lives, their livelihood on the line to support a new and a free Iran. The weight of all of this, getting caught in the lies about the Ukrainian airliner, the lies about the virus, the collapse of oil prices, the failures to invest, the using of vital national resources for corruption and distractions and their own security forces. There's just so much any regime, no matter how repressive, no matter how many lives they're willing to take, that they can withstand. That brings us to this moment, because now we're facing a snapback of the sanctions. And I know that the regime is undoubtedly telling the Iranian people, don't worry, we'll wait out Donald Trump. This is just him. It's not just him. This is bipartisan, completely bipartisan. As you saw with the killing of Soleimani, President Trump may have ordered it. It may have come from a Republican administration, but I didn't see much opposition. It was bipartisan. So will the snapback be bipartisan. And so will the continuation of American sanctions until the regime is ended. We're entering a critical phase. The regime has backtracked. If anything else about these mullahs to understand them is they are cowards. When Soleimani was killed, thankfully, and when President Trump ordered the US Navy to respond and destroy the Iranian Navy if they continue their provocation, they've gone silent. They're back in their holes. They'll come out again, but it's the mark of a coward. But whether they engage in direct combat with the United States or not almost doesn't make any difference. They will not withstand this pressure. What's needed from us? Stay engaged. Stay engaged. The lives that may be lost are the brave students and workers who go to the streets of Iranian cities and protest. Everyone can do something. In Iran, you can go to a protest. You can spray paint on a wall. You can speak with neighbors. You can drop pamphlets. You can do anything. If you're in the oil industry, you can do something, stop resources from going to the IRGC. If you're in the military and you're asked to put down a legitimate protest, refuse. In Iran, it's clear what they can do. For those of us here in America and in the Western world, stay engaged, stay involved, contribute what you can, give your voice when you can, write to relatives what you can, speak with people in Iran, keep the movement alive. I think it is enormously telling that in these desperate moments by the mullahs, when they attack in desperation, they're really only attacking two entities, the United States government and President Trump, that I understand, and Mrs. Rajavi and the MEK. What does that tell you? They're not attacking any other opposition group. They're not attacking any other Iranians. The MEK. That's not by chance. They know that the orchestration, the organization, the sacrifice, and the work that's going to bring down this regime, other than the United States and our Western allies and human rights organizations, is going to come from one place, us. All of us who have dedicated ourselves to the National Council of Resistance and the MEK and Mrs. Rajavi. She alone has the credibility, the resources, will make the sacrifices as the international network and the support to do this. At the moment, only Mrs. Rajavi and the MEK is in communication with almost every aspect of the United States government and governments throughout Europe and the Western world. Only the MEK has the people inside Iran in the resistance groups who can combine the support and resources in the West with people on the ground in Iran. While all of us have been dealing with the virus, all these forces have been conspiring to add more and more and more and more pressure. I know they're despotic. I know they'll take lives. I know they're desperate. I know they're cruel. We all know what they'll do. I know you better than I. You've lost relatives and friends by the thousands. I don't care how despotic they are. They, like all dictatorships, every one that's ever been in history, they all fall. These guys are not as strong as many. Actually, in fact, they're not as strong as most. They're going to fall too. And these events are going to bring us to that moment. To all of you who have stayed engaged and taken your time, everyone in generations to be born in Iran, and all of us who love freedom around the world, we're all so grateful to you. And thank you for having me today. I've been honored to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Torricelli. Well said indeed. And I have to admit, Organization of Iranian Americans is so proud to work in such a bipartisan fashion and have such strong advocates like yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I am very honored to introduce our next speaker, Governor Tom Ridge, America's first Secretary of Homeland Security. Governor Ridge, you have joined us in many congressional events and conferences and have always been on the forefront of advocating a democratic alternative and a resistance and the right US policy. Please share with us your experience with the Iranian resistance.
Well, depending upon what part of the world you're tuned in, it could be good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. In any event, I want to thank the Organization for Iranian American Communities for inviting me to participate in what I consider probably to be an unprecedented meeting of this sort. And my prayers are that you are all well and continue to enjoy good health amidst this global pandemic. So it's a great pleasure to join you. At the outset, I'd like to extend a few special greetings, if you don't mind. I want to thank my friend Bob Torricelli and the Ambassador Blackwood, who's going to join us later. I'm honored to be in their company. As you can see, it is bipartisan, and that's the way it's been for the past 15 years as we've all worked together through various challenges that the MEK and NCRI have confronted over the past decade and a half, that Republicans and Democrats have been involved in strong and collective voice, bipartisan voice for a free and democratic Iran. If you don't mind, I'm going to take the liberty of also saluting the irreplaceable, untiring, indefatigable, and inspirational leadership of Madame Rajavi. And she's got a great group of men and women who support her in that efforts, some overseas, some here in the United States, and it's been a privilege to get to know so many of them. And then finally, some of the most visible heroes and heroines of this battle for a new and free and 21st century Iran are the heroes and heroines, the men and women of Ashraf 3. I'm going to take the liberty of acknowledging a friend of mine who's in their midst, although I've met many of them on a trip to Albania a couple of years ago, Ali Safavi. I wanted to say hello to my dear friend Ali, and also to tell you Ali Riza, who's doing a lot of work back in the United States, is still working 24/7 in the joint cause with me and with so many other friends in this effort. So to all of you, greetings, best wishes and thanks. I've been on this journey along with Senator Torricelli and so many other Republicans and Democrats for almost 15 years. It's been an incredible journey. It has given me an opportunity to learn more about the extraordinary culture and history of Iran. It's given me the opportunity to learn about the strength and character of the Free Democratic Iran movement, of leadership at all levels, from the community of Iranian American citizens in the United States, to those around the world, to those present, about this effort, about this vision for a new Iran. The first thought that comes for decades, the nearly 40,000 martyrs who have given their lives to support this cause, overcome. And it begins in Ashraf 1, their cause, each other. And you said, out of a piece of barren land, lies and broken promises. And through all, and from nothing, and build and renewed their commitment, a visible commitment to each other into a free and independent and democratic. And oh yes, they had to build an Ashraf, that same